Welcome into the Atlanta Sports Party, your home for the best Atlanta sports talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere, but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Maria Martin. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and that side has a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or in Google Play. The Atlanta Sports Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we've heard over and over, on and off for at least 3 months now, what the real story was about who landed at head coach in Flowery Branch. But we got some more deets that we want to react to. We'll talk about it today as well. We are going to talk about some Braves important numbers, especially for Ozone. But first and foremost, we got to get into the meltdown that was the play-in game on Wednesday. Shall I begin, or would you all like to?
I think you should start it.
Yes, let's start us off. Let's crank this up real quick.
Yeah. So, last night there was anticipation. The Hawks were looking for their fourth play-in win in the last 3 years. Woohoo! Play-in win. And it looks like something that maybe would be promising because they'd won their last game against Chicago. However, they also lost their last 6 games in the regular season. And I feel like that was the telltale sign. Yes, Maria, people talked about the fact that they had so many injuries, right? Yes, Jarvis, people talked about the insertion or reinsertion of Trae Young into the lineup and how is that going to impact how the rest of the players played. But the bottom line is they walked into a match with a Chicago team that was also dealing with injuries, just like every other team at this point in the season, and a team that had a player in Alex Caruso who's given the Hawks fits over the years. So unfortunately, the Hawks couldn't take advantage of that. And that was my problem. It was everything from the first 6 minutes where they couldn't buy a basket all the way to and this is what I like to say before I wrap up my first part of my rant, and then I'm going to be quiet and then come back. That first quarter, everybody was excited about the second quarter. The Hawks going a 14-0 run. Okay, maybe it's going to happen for the Hawks. No, you should have checked out the last 39 seconds of the first quarter. That would have told you everything you needed to know about how this game was going to turn out. And this is not an indictment of Trae Young. It's simply to say, overarching, it told the tale because Trae has a bad pass. What do the Bulls do? What they did the entire game. Got back on transition so quickly that the Hawks couldn't recover. Then Trae Young handling the ball. The ball gets stolen. What do? They go back down to the court. Now, granted, Terry missed a layup, but guess what happened after that? Drummond got the offensive rebound, and there you have it. That's the story of last night's game. Exactly. That's the story of last night's game. That's the story of the last 6 games of the regular season, and that's going to be the story that needs to dictate what these Hawks do in the offseason. But I just wanted to, before we start talking about the offseason, really talk about what happened at the end of the regular season and in that play-in game last night that got us here.
You know, one of the things, I feel like I was sitting there as they were getting ready to tip off, and I looked at the starting lineup. I was like, they about to lose this game.
Yeah.
You have DeAndre Hunter at the 4, a guy who probably might be the worst rebounding wing in the entirety of the NBA. I was like, yeah, they are in super trouble. Then you got Garrison Matthews and Wes Matthews coming off the bench and Muhammad Gay. I was like, oh, yeah. It's a wrap. That's your 9-man rotation. It's
bloodbath.
It is absolutely over. And I know people are kind of like, feeling, I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but just feeling like Trae Young's performance is definitely lackluster for sure. And it just seemed like the Chicago Bulls just came out. They were on a different pace, right? They were on a different level.
And I think you tweeted that, Jarvis, very early.
Like they were playing like they were in a play-in game. Like they really wanted it. And Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White, the way they were, it just seemed like they were in a different gear. I was like, is everybody in slow motion or something? Or did they take some Ritalin or something? Like, what is going on out here? Because those guys were just lights out in that first quarter, and to the tune of 40 points in the first quarter. So I just feel like the Hawks were doomed from beginning, because like you said, when you have DeAndre Hunter and Bo playing the wing, playing the 3, and then of course you got the backcourt that doesn't necessarily combine for a great defensive performance. Yeah, it was a recipe for disaster last night, and that's exactly how it played out.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you saw what the Chicago Bulls did with the 40 points, you knew that it was going to be bad. And you knew that the Hawks could get back in there. But when you set the tone like that in the first quarter, it's so hard to come off of that. And it just felt from the very beginning that they wanted it more, kind of like what you said, Jarvis. And it gave me kind of, I know we're going to talk about the offseason, it gave me kind of a preview of what's to come if no changes are made, meaning there has to be some changes for sure. And you got DeJounte Murray fighting for his life out there, doing everything that he can to help that team win. And they didn't win. And I knew from the very beginning, and it was a hodgepodge of players, kind of like what we saw towards the back half of the season because of all the injuries and all those things. But those become excuses to a point, right? And you just didn't see what Chicago gave. And they had no right to win that game, and they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing that I noticed as well, two things. Number one, Maria, to your point, you saw the passion and the drive and the understanding of the urgency in the game right before. The Heat and the Sixers were both playing like they were fighting for their lives. I felt like only one team in the nightcap was playing like, hey, this is the end for me, and being okay with that. And then the body language and the fact that it felt like the Hawks just conceded in the first quarter. And they came back in the second quarter because they were able to shoot 5 of 7 from 3, but it was almost just because the ball kind of went in the basket, but it wasn't really like a strategy. And then there was kind of no switch. Some of the switch outs were a little bit questionable. Like, your bench is what got you back in the game in the second quarter. Might have been good to keep Trae out just a little bit longer. Just let that bench bring you all the way back and see how it goes. But I understand on the same token, you want to insert him back in. He wants to play. He's passionate. He takes off part of the brace. I get all that. But I think that, put it like this, it was not something that I wanted to see, because I told you guys I didn't want them to necessarily be too successful to think that they were doing anything right. But I did not want to see them go out feeling like it was a blitzkrieg by the Bulls either, which honestly, unfortunately, last night's game and who was standing tall for the Hawks and who kind of wasn't was the telltale of what all the conversation has been this last 24 hours. And that is, we're now at the end of this regular season. This front office, Landry Fields and Quinn Snyder, have a decision to make. But let's go with Trae first. Do you guys think that he's played his last game in a Hawks uniform?
I don't think so. And I've probably, in his 6 years that he's been in with this team, I would have never thought that, especially coming off of after 2021 when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. I was like, oh man, Trae is going to be a lifetime Hawk, and he's probably going to be in conversation to be better than the one that does the games on TV, the Dominique Wilkins. So, but now, given the situation and given how things looked last night, and I hate to put everything on the game, but I just think that was just kind of a reminder of what this season has been, because we've had so many injuries. So that's why there was some questioning. Okay, well, maybe if they can figure out a way to get these guys to play together, and they may have something. And I think that question was answered last night. And like, that was just the totality of it, right? It was on full display in front of the national television. Like, hey, this team sucks together and changes needs to be made. So I feel like everything should be on the table when it comes to the moves that need to be made, or who stays and who goes. And unfortunately, Trae has to be in that conversation at this moment, because you just can't, given what the draft capital that you've already given up for DeJounte Murray and just how this overall makeup of this team, it's going to be some hard decisions that are going to have to be made. And hey, we'll see if they're going to make the right ones.
Yeah. What about you, Maria?
I'm with Jarvis. I don't think so, because, nothing has told me previously in the way that this front office has dealt with this team that they have it in them to get rid of Trae, though I do believe that he will be on the table and that there will be conversations made about him. I don't think you're doing your team any justice by not talking about trading him. But I don't want to use the word scared, but I almost feel like this front office is too scared to make that move. But something does have to change. DeJounte Murray and Trae Young did not work out the way we thought that they were going to. We thought this was going to be a slam dunk, the best thing in the NBA, one of the best backcourts in the NBA. And look, on paper, they absolutely are, but it's not working. The chemistry is not working. It's not there. Whenever they're on the floor, it's just something is wrong, something is off. So when something is wrong and off, you have to make changes. And we've talked about this pretty much from the back half of the season on this podcast, is that changes do have to be made. And I'm talking about big changes. And I knew people had been frustrated for the last couple of years because they had that I don't want to call it a once in a lifetime, but kind of Eastern Conference Finals run. Yeah.
Tell the truth.
They shouldn't have been there. And I think when you get to that point, the expectations change for your team in a way that they couldn't keep up with. But now you have to make change. I mean, you really do have to make changes. So once that had happened, everyone's like, blow up the team, all those things. Well, I don't necessarily believe in blowing up the team, but I do believe that some massive pieces have to be made this offseason. And there does have to be serious consideration to trade either DeJounte Murray or Trae Young. I just don't know which one it's going to be.
Yeah, that's the scary part, because those are your most valuable assets other than Jalen Johnson. And you're not trading him because you need him for everything he does inside and even on the wing. And one more thing just to add to that, and I agree with you. I think scared is the okay word because Trae puts butts in seats. And let's be honest, they can't look away from that. They gotta look towards that. But it may not be a rebuild, but it's darn close to it. It's a reset. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is everybody keeps pointing back to 2021. Take a look at the teams that they went up against in 2021. And let's talk about their success. Let's talk about the Bucks' success. Let's talk about the Knicks fighting their way out, minus Julius Randle, into the number 2 spot. Okay. That's what I want people to focus on, because that's the reality of where you are in 2024. That was 3 years ago. And every team that you blew through to get to the Eastern Conference Finals continues to be at the top of the division, but you continue to fight just to get into the postseason. And that's really, for me, problematic. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some news that may have some interesting twists and ties in what really happened a couple months ago in Flowery Branch. We'll talk about it on the other side. This episode of the Atlanta Sports Party is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA. As we see, we're getting out of that play-in round and getting that much closer to the actual playoffs in the NBA. NHL playoffs are in full swing as well. So is baseball. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And like Jarvis said, he's expecting some big things from Ronald Acuna Jr. in April. He showed us and showed out again and showed us his MVP caliber play in the Wednesday series finale against the Astros. So maybe that's a good bet for you. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. And don't forget about Marcell Ozuna, who can also potentially get you some big bucks. Get it on FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. You look back, guys, at January 25th, right? And that's the morning where everyone was anticipating, because the rumors were coming out, the reports were coming out about who was going to get the Falcons job. And I don't know about you, Marie, I don't know about you, Jarvis, but it was exciting for me that it was even a coveted position, right? And it started off with Bill Belichick being the de facto coach. Like, there's no conversation about it. The Falcons are just going through the rigmarole of interviewing 13, 14 candidates, and they're just making sure they check the box for the Rooney Rule, so on and so forth. Like, everybody was so over it until a couple days before the hire was actually announced. And you started hearing rumors that maybe they were going to go in a different direction, right? Whether that was McDonald, whether it was Slovic, or whether that was Morris. But Bill Belichick's name continued to go down, down, down as far as the rankings go. Now, as of that morning, he still thought that was his job to have. But as we found out a little bit later, Raheem Morris was the actual choice. And now we're finding out more details about exactly how things started to unravel and how we got in the situation or the position where Bill Belichick is now an analyst for the NFL as opposed to the head coach for the Falcons or any other franchise. So Jarvis, I ask you the question, does the non-hiring of Bill Belichick make more sense, or now, since some of those details have come out, is it more confusing for you?
No, it makes all the sense in the world because here's the thing. I feel like, the Falcons really mean that whole collaborative piece. I think that's not something that Terry Fontenot came up with or Raheem Morris. That is an organizational edict from coming down from the top, right? Which is Arthur Blank. So I think when you think about it from that standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world because I know that, some of the people that were close to Bill Belichick said that, hey, he was willing to give up general manager duties, but at the end of the day, like the man's 71 years old. He
now
is
72.
I'm not 72. He's not necessarily, I'm not gonna sit up here and say that he's not willing to change, but you have to understand that he likes things done a certain way. And he's won 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach and 2 as a defensive coordinator for the Giants. So it's hard to kind of go against that, right? People are going to concede. And then eventually, the thing that was making me throw up if they would have hired Bill Belichick is the fact that he was going to bring all them old raunchy assistants in, Joe Judge and
not throw up.
I know, right? I'm still on throw up. And the most failed former assistant of his.
And Josh McDaniel.
Josh McDaniel. I knew that's who you're talking about. The most failed.
Matt Patricia.
Yeah.
What? Like all of those guys, for a fact they would have come with him, and that's the part that I don't like because that's why I feel like he wouldn't have been willing to change because of those instances, because everybody knows, and he even said it. A source even said it himself that he was going to bring his guys. And he was hoping somewhere on the East Coast that he was going to get hired because, hey, I want to bring my guys, so it won't be too much to move their families around. So for me, I feel like this made a lot more sense because it makes sense that the Falcons brass, the team wasn't interested in bringing Bill Belichick in. As a matter of fact, they weren't even on his top 3. So like this brings it all home for me.
Yeah. And what about you, Maria?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that all of this was coming. I knew it was going to come out eventually. And I think the most telling quote in this article was he was essentially voted off the island.
Yes.
And it proves, I know, it's like, it's giving Survivor.
Yes.
It's giving Mean Girls.
Right.
Anyway,
Yes.
literally. But, it's more indicative that it is a collaborative effort by the Falcons, kind of what you were talking about, Jarvis, which I think is a good thing. And I think it means that you have support from other people when it came to hiring Raheem. And you want that support from your coaches. You want that input. At the end of the day, it is the NFL. It's not necessarily a collaborative, friendly business. So at the end of the day, they're going to make decisions that benefit their franchise. So it was a little bit refreshing to read and reiterate the fact that they did take into account what other people in the building felt. And it's not really surprising in the sense that the age was one of the biggest factors and why a lot of these people didn't want him in the building. Look at all the other finalists of this island, right? They're all young. So it's all people that if they're successful early on, can be with your franchise for a long period of time. A 72-year-old being there for 5 years isn't really very realistic. And then you're starting over, and Arthur Blank's already annoyed enough that he's at this point in his ownership career that he wants people to be successful right now. So none of that is surprising to me. I did know that he did want to bring his guys in. I was reporting that throughout the Belichick process that some of his guys were already calling the coaching staff. And so I think that worried everybody too. It's some of those names that you mentioned that people were really nervous about coming and being a part of Atlanta. So I think everyone kind of wanted a fresh start, and Bill Belichick gives you that to a point. You kind of already know what you were getting. So the essentially voted off the island quote is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. But I'm not surprised at all.
No, and I would agree. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't confused. The article was just confirmation of a couple of things. Number one, I figured that one more call to Robert Kraft happened and that call was not glowing. And we're starting to see that with so many different little, not just news reports. I heard it from one of the beat reporters in New England on a 92.9 interview. Then we're kind of seeing things play out with some of the what is it, like a docuseries or something that Tom Brady's doing. And it's kind of giving it's giving disconnect at so many levels. And then going back to the young piece, I think it's not even just that Bill Belichick's older. He's 72 years old.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll is 72 years young. And so it also depends on how you approach the game. That's how Pete Carroll was able to be so successful up until he's not successful, because he was able to really connect with players. It seemed very clear that Bill Belichick was not connecting with his players, nor seemed to have any interest in really connecting with his players over that last couple of years. And then at the press conference, Raheem Morris's introductory press conference, it was very, very clear that, and I overheard someone say, no, seriously, he was the unanimous choice. He was the top choice. And then someone called me like weeks after that. There was a private event that Arthur Blank had with some luminaries, some longtime Falcons ticket holders and the like. They said the same thing. They said he was the number one choice, and everything about how it shifted to him and how Bill Belichick in part shifted it because of all the things we just said, but how Raheem ended up shifting it himself. That's exactly what that person said when they called. They were like, that article just resonates completely. It makes perfect sense. And I think that hopefully some of these naysayers who've been thinking that Raheem Morris was some type of consolation gift when the Falcons couldn't get who they wanted. No, that's not the case at all. Falcons could have gotten exactly who they wanted if they wanted Bill Belichick. But I always felt like they made the right decision. I always felt like they made it for the right reasons. And I do believe, Maria, to your point, if I'm going to go with somebody who has success and somebody who can bring that success forward with me, I'm going with the young guy who I know is successful, has been successful over here, but has even been more successful than since he's left. Bring that all back to me. So yeah, like you guys said, not confused, just confirmed. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit as well about all of the success that the Braves are having because of one guy that we knew was going to come through in the beginning and one guy who might have surprised us all when we come back. This episode of our Atlanta Sports Party is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. Of course, we're not talking about our teams here in Atlanta. We're talking about Monopoly Go, the smash hit mobile game. You compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball and charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or in Google Play. So there are two important numbers that came out of the Braves' sweep of the Astros, 1 and 16. Ronald Acuna Jr. hits his first home run to the tune, Maria, of me chuckling and saying, Grant Jarvis and I just said on the Atlanta baseball party that he was due for one. So it was so exciting to see him hit that. And we'd also talked about Marcell Ozuna and how he had a streak at that time of 15 straight games of a hit. Of course, he extended that to 16. And so it's so exciting to see what Marcell Ozuna has been able to do. But how surprised are you to see so much success from him early in the season? And then how maybe excited are you, or you were confident anyway, that Ronald Acuna Jr., once he got his spring practice legs or spring training legs under him, was going to be this guy?
Yeah, well, first of all, excuse me, I wasn't surprised by Ronald Acuna Jr. hitting the home run. I was surprised it took this long.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm excited. And last Sunday on Sports Extra, I tried to remind everybody that the season is still very young, okay? Yeah. Like, we're just into this thing. We are barely into the season. So let him get his legs under him, if you will. Let him kind of figure some things out. It's just a slow start. Everybody has it. It's baseball. It happens. The end. Obviously, you don't expect that from the reigning NL MVP. You expect him to go out and go yard every other game, but that's not how baseball works. He will be fine. Never worried about him. What is surprising to me is Marcell Ozuna, and he surprised everybody. And it's a very valuable bat to have in a lineup that was already loaded. And it's not that he can't hit. It's not that, we saw it last year. He turned a page, which everyone was concerned about him in the beginning of the year. Then in the back half of the year, he obviously turned the corner and was able to produce some more profitable at-bats for sure. So to have the hot start that he has, I'm very happy to see it. I also think that it's not surprising in the way that this Braves season, as young as it is, has been very wacky so far. Expect the unexpected from this team, right? We never expected Spencer Strider to be done for the rest of the year. There is no Sean Murphy. There's all of these random things that are happening, yet guys are continuing to step up.
Ozzy Albies is now on the IL.
Ozzy Albies breaking his big toe. Like, what the heck? Expect the unexpected. And Jared Kelenic, everyone saw his spring and thought there's no way this kid is going to be profitable. Look what he's doing so far. So expect the unexpected with this team. They're stringing together things in a good way. If it comes to the tune of Marcell Ozuna on a massive hit streak, great. Love it. So I think that you're going to see a lot of that this year. Guys stepping up in weird ways you didn't really think was possible.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think I think that the Astros, actually it was good for the Braves to play the Astros, Jarvis, because they're actually at this, they're in the same place because they've lost from their pitching staff and from their starters as well. They're 6-14. The Braves, on the other hand, are on the upswing. They're 12-5. So I think it says a lot to your point, Maria and to Jarvis, about what the Braves have been able to do. Wacky ways that they do it, but they've been able to keep their heads above water much better than a team that's just as viable as them to get back to the World Series. But look how they're struggling to figure it out.
Yeah, like who would have thought when the season got started that we'll be mentioning Marcell Ozuna's name in the same breath as Mike Trout, the league leader in home runs, this early on, and he's leading the league in RBIs with 23. So all those things, like I think Maria was spot on when you're talking about expected, unexpected. Like this is something that, and that's what makes this season. These type of seasons, like when they get off the stars like this and they're still able to be successful, that's why you talk about, special seasons, because they were able to win a World Series without Ronald Acuna Jr. back in 2021. So I'm sitting up here like, all right, maybe this could happen again. So I'm not getting concerned. I'm not getting worried. I'm getting more excited. I was like, all right, this will be an excellent storyline, right? So, but yeah, for Ronald Acuna Jr. to get his first home run of the season, I'm elated, right? Because he has 12 more days to get 9 more home runs, T? Because I said 10 home runs before
yes,
the
you
end of
did.
That's funny. He can do
it. Yeah, I'm on it, right? Well, let's ride this doggone train, baby. But yeah, I think this is something that we need to kind of lock into because, I like how the Braves have already started to adjust it too. Because when you think about what they bring to the table as far as their pitching staff, everybody's 30 plus, and I was just looking, I was like, wow, okay. And then they've even sprinkled in some spot starts for guys to kind of give guys that extra day of rest, even with Ronaldo Lopez, who's been a ridiculous surprise. Who has a 0.5 ERA, which is absolutely crazy. 3 quality starts, all that stuff. He's just been lights out and just making Alex Anthopoulos look even more smarter than what he is, which is not a downplay on what his level of competence when it comes to constructing major league rosters. So I think that this is something that we need, like Maria said, this is going to be, I feel like that's the theme for the season. Expected and unexpected. And more than likely, it's going to come out positive for all Braves fans.
And you know what's crazy? They just played that series in the building where they won the World Series. And it's giving the same vibes that World Series season had. Remember what they were in the first half of the year. You would have looked at me and said, I was absolutely out of my mind that team would win a World Series. And somehow, some way, Alex Anthopoulos got it done, brought some pieces over that changed the culture in the clubhouse, Jock Peterson being one of them. And all of a sudden, they're winning a World Series. It's a team that no one ever believed would. So I think the beginning of this season, I'm not going to say that it's like they're going to win the World Series because this is happening. But I would say that having all these pieces exit at points that are really, really concerning. The beginning of the year when things are very prosperous and you're very hopeful, like I don't think that's indicative of where this team can go because of what they're doing, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and when we were talking to one of our ESPN MLB writers, Jesse Rogers, on my radio show last weekend, and literally I asked him the question about the Braves and kind of where he thought they were and where he thought they could go. And he'd spoken to Alex Anthopoulos like hours before that. and the calm and the cool and the reflection of seeing those moments where he could have gone after a pitcher or a reliever and didn't. He talked about that, and he said he was confident in his team. He was confident in what they brought to the table, what they brought to each other, and he feels like everything's going to work out in the end. So I really love the fact that it was so funny. I was like, whoa, he just spoke to him a couple hours before, but just as we talked about, he said something is special about this team, and I think we obviously agreed that something is special and something's brewing as well. We appreciate you stopping by the Atlanta Sports Party. The Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel is now streaming live 24/7. It's all things Atlanta sports 24/7. And remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you on the Atlanta Football Party on Monday.